Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United still look to move Garnacho on in the summer according to reports, and a potential swap deal involving maybe Victor Osimhen, maybe somebody else, but maybe why that actually makes no financial sense for Manchester United. You'd be better off selling him for pure profit. Also, is Marcus Rashford proving fans and Amorin wrong with his form for Aston Villa? I think he got another 2 assists last night. Is Rashford proving everybody wrong? Also, Harry Maguire's done an interview saying that Manchester United have got plenty of leaders on the pitch and that him and Bruno get on fantastically well and support each other. Look, I don't blame Harry. He's got to do an interview. This is the FA Cup. But come on, where are all the leaders, if we're being honest? Also want to talk about this story that came out last night that Manchester United are going to implement a new injury algorithm with a local university to try and stop them buying injury-prone players. I have a very cheap solution for this. You don't need to get a university involved. You can get in Professor Bridge. I'll help you out with that. Also, stories around Rasmus and his confidence levels, and also a little bit about the injuries as well. I mean, it's very, very strange. Another injury update today around Mount, Collier, Luke Shaw, Bienda, Mainu, and it's incredible. Incredible. We'll talk about that as well and a few other bits. But can I just say at the start, yes, I can. I'm going to say at the very start of this show, congratulations to Manchester United's under-18s, beating Arsenal 3-2 last night. I tell you what, Man United and Arsenal, when it comes to under-20, we're absolutely battering them. We've taken heaven, we've taken Obi Martin, and we've knocked them out of the FA Youth Cup in the quarterfinals. So in a youth element, we own Arsenal, but on the pitch, in a senior element, we don't. But congratulations to them. Away from home as well, extra time win at the Emirates. And look, a lot of people talking about exciting young players in the youth setup. As I always say, there's plenty of talent in Man United's youth setup, but until we start seeing them in first team shirts, to me it's irrelevant. I've played the game. I've seen this for 30 years. Young players that are going to be amazing because they look amazing in an under-18 shirt. I mean, people weren't saying it about McTominay and Rashford and they came through. So it's a step up, and hopefully a lot of these players can step up. Talo says, please let Rashford stay, please. Well, thank you very much for that, for your first super chat. Right, let's talk. We're going to start off about this Garnacho story. So, obviously, we know that Wednesday, walking down to change his shirt wasn't as clean cut as some people think. A lot of people said that it was petulant. Then some people said he was just going to change his shirt. I think Amorin is saying that whatever the reason, whatever the excuse, it's not a good look. It didn't look good. And it's not good to do that. So he's clearly pissed Amorim off. I think Amorim's willing to say, put it down to youth and he's going to buy everybody a meal or whatever. But again, it's just another piece of evidence in the Garnacho story with Amorim, which is very, very young. I mean, he's only been here a few months. He was left out of the Manchester derby for some reason. He's gone and done that as well. At what point does Amorim go, look, this for me is a journey I don't want to go on? I completely disagree with Man United selling Garnacho like they wanted to in January. Amorim didn't want to sell Garnacho in January, but are we starting to run out of patience in relation to the Amorim-Garnacho relationship if there is an opportunity to do what Amorim was on about in his press conference, which is sell to buy? We know that somebody will buy Garnacho. My issue with it is that is a decision for Amorim to make, but the club have already made it. They see him as an asset, a pure profit, and a way to get money into the club to cover off the debt interest that they have to pay and be able to buy players. I don't agree with Man United selling young players. I think principally it's very, very wrong. But taking away from that, of course, you've got to acknowledge the fact that Garnacho, Amorim's relationship is a little bit tempestuous at the moment. And look, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I can react to the news this morning about, that there is talk in Spain that he could be going there and he's unsettled and Amorim's not happy with him. Of course, only a fool would say that's not true, that there could be something in it. On the other hand, there might be nothing in it. Like, Garnacho might be really happy at Manchester United and Amorim might see him as a really essential player for next season and the season beyond. What I find ironic is that if we swapped Osimhen for Garnacho, and we'll talk about why that can't happen in a moment, but if we did swap Osimhen for Garnacho, to me, it's the old bite your nose off to spite your face. Like, so we need a striker, but let's get rid of one of the only creative players we've got. Like, there's no point bringing in a world-class striker and then taking away a creative. Now, some would say, well, Garnacho doesn't create, but he's still a creative. Like, who's going to replace him? Rashford, Anthony, Ahmad's injured, so who Mason Mount never fit as well. So I think that, yeah, it's all right thinking about swapping Garnacho for Osman, and it sounds like a very typical Glazer thing to do. And when I say Glazer, I mean Ineos, because they're the same thing. But it's all right selling Garnacho, but you've got to bring somebody in who is going to do... We need 3 or 4 people in that position, in my opinion. But look, on Osman, look, yesterday... Arsenal heavily linked to him. Obviously, we had the story yesterday that Man United aren't in for him. We'll have to see when we're back in for him again, because you know it will happen, and the same thing will happen with Gyökeres, because that's just the way it is. But the fact that at the start of the week, we had a lot of Nigerian reports and people close to Osman talking about Manchester United, and then last night we had similar reports about Arsenal. And I think what you've got here with Osman is a player that knows he's moving in the summer, and his agent and him want to pitch him as the #1 transfer for the summer. Why? Money. If Osman is wanted by Arsenal and Manchester United and PSG, he might not be wanted by any of them. But if he is publicly, everybody gets interested. Maybe Chelsea swoop in as well. And look, it's good for Osman because he gets more choice, but it's good for Osman because he gets more money. And I think what we're seeing here is just a lot of that talk. There was an interesting piece about, look, let's talk about a swap deal, because a lot of people would look at it and go, hold on a minute, if Napoli are willing to give us £50 million for Garnacho and Osman's release clause is 62 million, why don't we just do a swap deal? Like, it makes total sense. I remember, I don't know whether this is still true, but I remember this from Swedish Rumble on Twitter, talking about Sancho and Ugarte, so it must have been last summer. Swap deals when it comes to FFP, because that's what people are talking about. Like, when people were talking about selling Garnacho in the summer, in January, it was like, if we sell him for £50 million, that means we can buy 5 players worth £250 million and just pay 10 million in year 1, which is just pure fantasy, but let's go with that for a moment. So if you sell Garnacho or Mainu, it's pure profit for FFP purposes. That 50 million goes straight on your balance, pure profit, FFP. If you sell Anthony for 20 million, that's not what his book value is. His book value is whatever 80 million divided by 5 is after year 4, because your amortization, that's how it works. So Anthony, we probably need to sell him for about 20 million to make any sort of even on what we paid for him over 5 years. But with a young player, it's pure profit, and that's the way it works, and that's why it's very appealing to a lot of clubs. But with swap deals, I remember this, Swedish Rumble was saying this, for swap deals, it's different because it's all about your book value. So if you sell Jadon Sancho for 25 million, sorry, if Jadon Sancho's book value is 25 million, and you swap him with Ugarte for Sancho plus 20 million, then the way UEFA look at it is they go, well, his book value is 25 million, and they've given 20 million to Man United, so that means Ugarte's value is 45 million. It doesn't matter if we pay... That's how they figure it out, basically. It doesn't matter on many other things like what the clubs... It's to stop clubs inflating. So it's to stop clubs saying, well, we value Sancho at 100 and they value Ugarte at 120. So we've given them 20 million, but we're valuing Sancho at... So you see what I mean? There is a book value of a player, because if there isn't a book value, then you could manipulate it and you could say to UEFA, yeah, we've just sold Scott McTominay to Napoli for £200 million and we've got Osman for 250. So we've given them 50, but actually they gave us, you could just inflate and manipulate your books. So when you do a swap deal, it's all about definitive book value. So Sancho would have been whatever, and then you add the money on. Now with a young player, and the way Swedish Rumble did it was that if you've got Mason Greenwood, his book value is 0. So if Man United had done a deal with PSG for Ugarte of Greenwood plus 20 million, 20 million would be the value of Ugarte. because the book value of Greenwood is 0. Now, obviously, Greenwood does have a value, but because he's homegrown, they're classed as 0. So you can do that deal, but you won't get any profit because they'll go, well, Greenwood's value is 0, so you're not having anything for FFP purposes. You can have Agate, and that's how it works. So basically, homegrown players in swap deals is really, really bad because they don't have a value. According to UEFA, they don't have a book value. So if you swap Garnacho with Osimhen plus 12 million, basically UEFA are saying, well, Garnacho's a homegrown player, so it's 0 value. You don't get any money on the books for that. That's how it works. So I don't know whether that rule's still true, but this is why you sell young players as opposed to swap them. Now, that makes a swap deal with Osimhen not going to happen with Man United because they have to have a value for Garnacho. They have to realise that value. So it'd be very interesting how that works, because the other way of that is that if Man United had swapped Agate for Rashford and PSG had given us 40 million plus Agate, then obviously it's the other way round. They're giving us money, so Rashford's value would be 40 million because he's starting from 0, but they've given us 40 million. So the only way it would work for us is if they gave us Osimhen and 30 million for Garnacho, and then we could register the 30 million as profit. But that's not the way round it would work. So I don't think a swap deal for Garnacho and Osimhen can work, because the only reason Ineos want to sell Garnacho is to put profit on the books. You don't get profit on the books if you're doing Garnacho plus 12 million for Osimhen, because his book value as a homegrown player is 0. So we won't be doing a swap deal with Napoli if that rule is still in place. But on top of that, I think we also need to, I've said this a lot, if you're selling Garnacho for 50 million and you think you can use that money to buy 5 players at 10 million, you're only ever kicking the problem down the road anyway. Yes, you'll make £50 million pure profit, and yes, you could buy 2 or 3 players and pay 10 million in the first year, but you've still got to pay if I buy a £50 million player from Ajax, I'm not paying £10 million for him. I'm paying £10 million for him in year 1, and then year 2, and then I'm still paying £50 million. I'm just kicking. It's like a credit card. You're still doing that, and that's why we owe over £300 million in transfer fees, which people forget. What if you sell Garnacho for £50 million and you use that £50 million to bring that down to 250? So these people who say, well, let's sell Garnacho for £50 million pure profit and we can just buy a load of players. Well, not really, because how do you pay for it next year? So and look, we don't know what the Ineos and the Glazers plan is, but it's not that simple to go, let's just sell a home player and then we can buy 4 or 5 players in the summer. Because all you're actually doing is kicking down the debt more down the road. Wouldn't they just structure as 2 separate deals like some Premier League clubs were doing last June, says Glenn C. This is a great point, but the rules of UEFA are quite strict. So you can't do 2 separate deals between the same clubs in a close period of time, because UEFA will say it is still technically a swap deal. But that potentially would be a way around it if Napoli paid us £50 million for Garnacho in June, and then we went and did a deal for Osimhen in late August. Would the gap be big enough for us to say, well, it wasn't a swap deal? UEFA still might look at it and go, that's technically a swap deal. So you've got to be very, very careful how you do that. Patrick Lynch says, we're badly handcuffed with sell to buy. Feels like we're going to sell our windows to buy a new door. Doesn't really make sense, is Patrick. Look, I mean, I don't want to go down that road because there's so much to talk about this morning, but I do think that I don't really understand Man United's PR. Really. I was speaking to my accountant, I was speaking to a couple of accountants actually on Wednesday, and we were doing about something else. And then we were talking about like financials of Manchester United, and both of them, like, even from a financial point of view, were like, it must be really bad at Manchester United. And I said, tell me about it, bruv. It's bloody awful. And they said no, they said, no, look, it must be really bad because look at what they're doing. They're publicly sacking 450 people. They're publicly talking about removing funds to charities, and they're publicly raising ticket prices. You need a big summer transfer window, but your club is telling the world we are financially desperate. So how are you expecting to walk into a summer transfer window and one, have funds, but two, if you have got funds, negotiate? You're walking in with your pants down and a tube of lube. Like, you are literally saying to everybody, we are desperate. And I suppose the way I sort of responded to that was, well, look, yeah, you're right, but if that's the only option, that's the only option. Like, it's not like they could have gone, let's not sack 450 people because it makes us look desperate to the rest of the world in the transfer market. The reality is I disagree with why we've done that, but they have done it because they think it needs to be done. And that's the situation. And I think still we have a lot of Man United fans who think, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. We've always been perceived as clowns in the transfer market. We'll now be perceived as desperate clowns because we are desperate. Like, there is no body in the world of football that wouldn't look at Man United at the moment and go, they are in a crisis. Financial crisis, on the pitch crisis. How does that help you in a transfer market? Because people will just go, they're desperate, add another 5 million on, take another 5 million off. If they're buying from us, they'll go low. If they're selling to us, they're going to push us high. So it becomes, it does become quite interesting. Yeah, look, as I said, just going back to the actual story, do I think Garnacho is going to go in the summer? Well, let's do a poll on that, actually, because, I mean, that's a separate thing. I think that obviously we know Ineos will cash in on anything. They're more than happy to do that. But I think this really depends on Amorin. Now, if you're Ruben Amorin, would you get rid of Garnacho this summer? I personally wouldn't. Rashford's got to go. Anthony's going to go. Ahmad's missed half of the season for the last 2. That leaves you with Garnacho as your only sort of creative winger. Now, if you're going to get 3 or 4 brought in, you sell Garnacho. If you know you're bringing in 3 number 10s, you get rid of Garnacho. But if you know you might get 1, I'm not getting rid of him. I can't. I'm ridiculously short in that area. I have other issues. So it'll be very interesting how that works out. A few other things I want to talk about this morning, but I just want to say the Dublin show, bloody hell, it's right next to me, very, very quickly. 2.5 weeks. It's 2 weeks on Wednesday night in Dublin town at the Olympia Theatre. It's going to be a fantastic night, loads of guests, loads of atmosphere. It's going to be interactive. The prize I'm giving out for the people who come up on the quiz will be, I wouldn't say life-changing, but it will be great. Music, everything. It's going to be our best ever show. 10 years of the United Stand in Dublin. Can't wait for that. If you haven't got your tickets yet, scan the QR code or go through the link in the live chat or the video description. Can't wait to see you. And I'm getting really excited now because I'm starting to put the show together and stuff. So, yeah, I'm just hoping we're still in Europe and we're still in the FA Cup because it'll be a bit of a downer. But we'll still have a good show. But yeah, really looking forward to it. So if you fancy a couple of days in Dublin or you're over in Ireland anyway, get your tickets. It's going to be a fantastic night while you can. Links in the live chat and in the video description. Right, I did want to talk about, let's talk about Rashford very quickly, but I do want to talk about this stuff, about this injury algorithm. And I also want to talk about what Harry Maguire has said around leaders at the club. But look, very, very quickly, I believe he definitely got 1 assist last night. I think Marcus Rashford may have got another one. So is Marcus Rashford proving Ruben Amorim wrong? Is he proving you wrong? No. I think it's fantastic what's happening with Rashford. I watched about half an hour last night. I watched the Palace game. I watched the Chelsea game. And look, if he was doing what he was doing in a Villa shirt for Manchester United, I think I'd be giving him probably a 7 out of 10. Yeah, I think I'd probably give him a 7 out of 10. I think he's doing much better than he has done for the last 18 months. But bottom line, very, very quickly, what would you... I'd be concerned if this wasn't happening. You haven't been picked by Man United for 6 weeks. You haven't played well for Man United for 6 months. 18 months, some would say. You've been absolutely ripped apart all through January as lazy and finished and not good enough and get out of our club. You get a shot at Aston Villa, who are in the Champions League, in the FA Cup and in a top 5 race, and want you, it's only down the road. If you can't pick yourself up, put a smile on your face and work hard, I'd be stunned. I don't know what people expect. The circumstances are completely different. It's like going from an unhappy relationship and starting dating again with somebody you actually really like, who's got the same interests as you, who's smiling at you, and you feel like a new person. It's like a new job. You know, it's just so obvious. It's incredible that people think that in some way, shape or form, this makes Amorin wrong. Like, that relationship was toxic, and it was toxic before Amorin, before Ten Hag. Andy Mitten said that, previous managers have had issues with Rashford. So this has been going on for years. The fact that he's gone somewhere, I mean, even like watching him yesterday, he looks different. I know he's probably had a shave and done his hair or whatever, but he just looks different, and he looks more focused. And look, maybe the pressure of Man United is too big for him. Maybe going to with all due respect, a smaller club. Yeah, they're better than us. They are better than us, but they're a smaller club in relation to interest. Maybe that just suits him a bit better. The focus on Aston Villa is not the same as the focus on Manchester United. But also, he's putting himself in the shop window. Will he be in an Aston Villa shirt next season? I would bet good money no. This is a stepping stone. This is an audition for Barcelona or whatever else. This is not about staying at Aston Villa, and this is not about coming back to Manchester United. This is an audition. And he hasn't scored yet. I think that's the next step, but I think that will come. As I said at the start of the week, for us, this is really good, because what we don't want to do is be in a position like we did with Donny van der Beek or Anthony Martial, where they go on loan because the relationship with Man United is over. They go on loan, get injured, don't perform, and then back in the summer and you are where you are. I don't understand why anybody would want Anthony or Rashford to not perform at Betis or Villa, respectively. This is what we want. Villa fans are very happy. Rashford looks happy. I think Man United are happy. So I don't think he's proven anybody wrong. I think the circumstances are different, and to me, it's about that fresh challenge, isn't it? So that's my thoughts on it. Do you think we'll still get 40 million for Rashford to Sanil? I think that is around what I would hope for. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a little bit less, but you've got to factor in wages. He is on ridiculous wages. I don't know what the wages are. 325 is what a lot of credible people say. Some people say 350, some people say 275. It's still a hell of a lot of money. I mean, Villa won't be able to pay that. So, yeah, it's it is incredible, really. But look, we'll have to see what happens. So Jim gives me major Ronnie Pickering vibes, says Dominic. Thank you very much for that. Sorry, I'm getting something here about something else. As soon as some club pays a decent price for Rashford and he's offered a decent wage, it won't be long before he gets back to the Rashford we had been watching the past 2 seasons, as Francis. Well, I hope not, but ultimately that wouldn't be our problem, would it? This might, just for a Saturday morning, this might make you laugh. So, Manchester United, it came out last night that Manchester United are looking at building an algorithm around injuries with a local university to stop and prevent them buying players with injury issues. It's not April the 1st, so this was out there. Now, Manchester United haven't rushed to deny this story, but I was just like, oh my God, who is running this football club and why are they letting that come out? And surely we're not actually doing it. And the fact that it named a local university makes me think we probably are going to do it. So in essence, what this would do is Man United are concerned about injuries. So what they're doing is, according to this news, is they're going to consult with, local geeks. No, you're not a geek if you go to university, but, whack it into
it's strategic, it's statistical, you know. Let me get my computer out. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a system whereby we're going to put in all the data around this player from 16, and then we're going to try and map out what injury he might get.
And I would say to that computer, okay, he's never been injured before. He's just been two-footed on his ankle and snapped his ankle and he's out for a year. Why don't your computer tell me about that then? So again, straight away, you just sort of look at it and go, what the hell is this all about? But where I will concede there would be a value is if you are buying players that have, you know, a history of muscle problems or whatever like that, it would be quite useful. What I don't get is why you need to build an algorithm about buying players to stop you buying injury-prone players when I know this community has been discussing the risk around players that we've bought in the past that have ended up being injury-prone. You don't need a bloody computer. Eric Bailly had, I'm getting mixed up with Leon, Eric Bailly had 3 separate injuries in the season before we bought him. 3 separate injuries. So you would sort of look at it and go, do I need a bloody algorithm to tell me he might be injury prone? When you look at Mason Mount, now, when did we buy Mason Mount? I think we bought Mason Mount in the summer of 69. No, not 69. I've just realised that Bryan Adams song, Summer of 69, back in this... I think he's singing about that summer being a really good summer for him with, you know, he was probably about a certain age, hanging around with his mates. You could sing that song in a completely different way, couldn't you, when you think about what 69 is? Anyway, I digress. Mason Mount signed for Man United in the summer of 23. Or was it 24? When did we buy Mason Mount? 24? No. Yeah, 23. Bloody hell. Yeah, summer 23. Yeah. So he's been here 18 months. So, look, I'll save Man United some money here. Don't go consulting any boffins at the university. Right, in the summer of 23, we bought him. In April 23, he had a pelvic injury. In February, he had a pelvic injury. So, in January, he had an ankle injury. So, there's 2 separate injuries there. February the 28th to April the 3rd, pelvic contusion. April the 25th to the end of the season, pelvic injury. So he had 2 separate pelvic injuries that kept him out for 2 months before we bought him. I don't need a bloody algorithm. It's there. Mason Mount, injury history. So, but I just call it absolutely incredible. Like, if they want, I'll do it for free. We'll do it for free. If Man United are thinking about buying a player, we'll sign an NDA, so we won't say who it is. It will take us 1 minute to go back with them and say, I'd probably look at this area and I might avoid this player. Like, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible that they think they need an algorithm, because when you look at the players we bought, Varane, I could have told you in 30 seconds, looking at his injury history, he's an injury risk, and he was. Mount's an injury risk, and he was. Eric Bailly was an injury risk, and he was. 1 minute search. You don't need a bloody algorithm. Is Agate an injury risk? No. Was he an injury risk when we bought him? No. Is Mazraoui? No. Was he when we bought him? No. So, look, I just think, stop buying players that clearly are an injury risk, and what is an algorithm going to do for you, you know? Personally, I think Vlahovic is the striker we should get, says Jordan. Summer of 69, and you would have a pelvic injury, says Nick P. Daniel says, Mark, don't you understand it's the club that is the problem, it's not the players' mentality. All stars joined United, suddenly got better when leaving. That's not proof what it is, says Daniel. No. I disagree, Daniel. I think that you've got to be a certain type of player with a certain type of mentality to play for Manchester United. and I think some of them don't have it. I think Anthony performing for Real Betis and not performing for Man United says more about Anthony than it does about Man United. Manchester United, you can't sit there as a Man United fan whacking on your 99 DVD or watching the story of the 60s or the Busby Babes or Brian Robson or Roy Keane or Eric Cantona. You can't sit there watching all that going, I love Man United, and then go, oh, you know what, the club eats players up. I feel sorry for Anthony. You can't be that club if you haven't got those expectations and pressure. The problem is we've brought players in that can't deal with it. You put Anthony in the 99 side, he'd be fucking shit. You put Rashford in the 99 side, he'd still have the same problems. They might be showing the door a bit quicker because Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't put up with it. But the problem with Man United, where you are right, is that over the last 20 years, we've accumulated players that shouldn't even be in the door. Shouldn't be anywhere near the door. They haven't, you know, society has changed. But you look at the mentality of a Ryan Giggs, an Eric Cantona, a Wayne Rooney, a David Beckham, a Roy Keane, a Dennis Irwin. The list goes, I could name you 50 players. And they're not all superstars. 50 players over the last 30 years I could name you that would destroy the so-called leadership vibes and mentality that we think we have at the moment. I could name you 50 players in the Premier League now that would destroy the leadership and strong mentality vibes that apparently we've got. So it's not lost. It hasn't, you know, Virgil van Dijk's got it, Mo Salah's got it, Saka's got it. You know, there's so many players that actually have got it in the modern game. I don't like harking back to the past because the past is gone. There are players in the modern game that have the right mentality to play for Manchester United. They're just at other clubs. They are out there. We just accumulated a very, very strange set of players that just can't deal with the pressure. And then I think it gets worse because they look around the dressing room and they go, it's not our fault, it's not our fault, and it just gets worse. Can't believe we let Anthony go and we're stuck with players full of themselves like Garnacho, says Artak. I mean, worst comment in the morning. Anyway, just did you see the Harry Maguire interview? Because he's spoken about leaders at Manchester United and has basically said there are plenty of leaders at Manchester United. Named himself, Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, Johnny Evans and Tom Heaton. And there endeth the lesson. If that's leadership at Man United, then we truly are screwed. Because Tom Heaton never plays. Johnny Evans, I don't even know what the injury is, but he's been out since December. Casemiro never plays. So basically, we've got Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes as leaders. And I think as many of us would have to admit, Bruno Fernandes is not a great captain. Good, okay, some say shit. So our leadership pool in that football club is a laugh. I mean, Tom Heaton, Johnny Evans, Casemiro, Harry Maguire and Bruno, they are your leadership team at Manchester United. Good lads, honest professionals. Some of them have won things, but I look at that, right? Harry Maguire, Bruno Fernandes, Tom Heaton, Johnny Evans and Casemiro, right? Compare that to Alisson, Andy Robertson, Van Dijk, Mo Salah, McAllister now, I would say. I feel like I'm missing other people as well. You could probably throw Trent in there, really. He's been there long enough. Like, there's levels to this game. Our lead, look, I know what Harry's saying, and he's got to say something when he's asked a question like that in an interview, but let's not pretend that's a leadership pool. Johnny Evans and Tom Heaton are basically going to retire. They're good lads. Casemiro is basically retiring in front of our eyes. You've basically got Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes. That, for a club of Manchester United status, that's fucking appalling. And I'm not digging out Bruno or Harry Maguire at all. I'm just saying they are the only first team leaders we've got. That is piss poor for a club of the status of Manchester United. Now, I'm not going to go back to the past and give you 9 leaders in a starting team that you'd take any day of the week. But we need far more than that. We need far, far more than that. So yeah, I don't agree that we've got a good leadership pool at Manchester United, and I think it does let us down. Also, they've confirmed that Manchester United are going to Malaysia 3 days after the end of the season, and then another game in Hong Kong. Do I have comments on this? People have asked me. I do have comments on it. I think that this is... Look, thanks everybody who's done... We've had check your emails. I know a lot of people, I thought it was going out at 9 o'clock last night. They did it in waves. So basically it was 1,000, then 1,000, then 1,000. So you might not have got the email until the early hours to do the United Stand community poll. Some really interesting results. I might just give you a little bit of a spoiler on one of them at the moment. But yeah, really, really important that you do it, because one of the ones I did want to talk about was, and it's not going to change, do you feel valued as a fan of Manchester United? 95% of you are no at the moment. We've had thousands of responses, but 95% of you don't feel valued as a fan of Manchester United. That's just one of the 10 questions, and it's not definitively finished yet. So thanks everybody who's done it. But this end of season Malaysia thing, there will be some United fans going, well, it will pocket us £8 million, so I'm all for it. Isn't it horrible the way modern football fans have had to become mercenaries? Like, all I think about is a lot of these players are going to be playing international football for the first 2 weeks of June. They're not going to get on holiday until, you know, the 3rd week of June, and then they're going to be back in training to go on tour in America in middle of July. Well, probably early July, a week before they go. So they're going to get about 2 weeks off. And the modern footballer barely gets 2 weeks off in a year. And we've just spoken about injury algorithms at universities. You know where I'm going with this. So Man United are looking at an algorithm around how to prevent injuries. And on the other hand, we're flying at the end of the season to earn 8 million in Malaysia and Hong Kong. Make it make sense. You can't have your cake and eat it, mate. You cannot. We are absolutely mercenaries. And not just at Man United, but that's what we're here to talk about. This has just become, they don't value you at all. They don't value you at all. They're only going to Malaysia because they're being paid to do it. When was the last time we went on tour over there? Our proper tour is America because there's more money there. When was the last time we went to South Africa? Massive, massive Man United fan base there. When was the last time? I know we've done Australia and we've done Japan and Hong Kong before, but we used to alternate. Not anymore. More money in America, but we'll pop over now if you give us 8 million quid. And we don't care about the players' welfare because, you know what, we've moaned about FA Cup replays, but we don't want FA Cup replays because there's too many games. But we'll go, we'll add a week on to the end of the season. I mean, it's just disgusting. It's disgusting, isn't it? FA Cup replays were voted out by Premier League clubs because there's too many games. And then you're off to play a couple of games at the end of the season to earn 8 million quid. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting what's happening to the game. Now, some people will say, yeah, they'll just take young players out there. Are you having a laugh? As if you're going to get 8 million quid for taking the under-18s out there. Newcastle and Spurs did it at the end of last season. They went out to Australia. You take your first team. That's the whole point. That 8 million will be determined on the fact that Bruno's got to turn up. So it's horrible what is happening, because my issue with it is that it's all fine and well going, oh, we'll get 8 million out of it. You know, in October next season, when, I don't know, De Ligt's out for a month, and I'm trying to think of people who are fit at the moment. So De Ligt's out for a month, and Agate's out for 2 months because they've got like hamstring or groin problem. You'll never be able to pin what caused that, but I'm telling you for free, playing the volume of football they're playing, US tour, Asia tour, straight after the season, only 2 weeks off, international football, this is what does it. It's too many games. So we won't pay, we might get 8 million for going out there to do these games, but in October, November, when it hits these players, and you haven't got a midfield and you've got a tough run of games and a manager gets sacked, there's always a cause and consequence. Cause and effect. And we haven't got the squad to be doing this sort of stuff. We haven't got the squad to be thinking, oh, 8 million quid. These players need a fucking rest. They'd have a week off before international football. Some of them aren't internationals. You know, they get an extra week of rest and recuperation. So it's just money, isn't it? Usually a business has to fill a social value quota. They probably have students doing this at uni. Still stupid though. Common sense should be used, as Thomas. I can't believe I've done that one from Artak as well. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Oh, yes, just talking about injuries. Very important. I'll try and wrap this up. Maybe I'll bring the Rasmus stuff in on the 8 o'clock show tonight. I don't actually really respect where it's come from anyway, but I'll talk about that later. Talking about injuries, and maybe this fits in with what we were just talking about there. The lack of respect for fans. I'm quite disgusted about the way this football club treats us. Slow sports news. Clip that up. Get that on the bloody headlines. Goldbridge is disgusted with the way Man United treat their fans. No, I am disgusted. We're all disgusted. But this is something that pisses me off because this started with Ten Hag and it's continued. Why do we never get told what the injury of the player is? Why is it always update, unknown injury and unknown return date? All my life, we've been told from the late 80s to probably 3 years ago, he's out with this injury, he'll be back in 4 weeks. You're telling me in 2025, medical science is getting worse. It's actually getting better. In 1999, if David Beckham did his hamstring, you'd be told he'd be back in 5 weeks. And he'd be back in 5 weeks. In 2025, we don't know the injury or the return date for Mason Mount, Toby Collier, Luke Shaw, Binder and Johnny Evans. Some of them have been out since December. Why is this happening? Like, we are the core of this football club. We are the people that make that football club money. Whether it's buying tickets, whether it's merchandise, or whether it's sponsors who only pay Man United money to get our eyes. TeamViewer, etc., they're not doing it for bloody status. They're doing it because they want you to go, ooh, look at that brand. I've never heard of that before. Ooh, I might use that brand. So fans are the life source of that football club. And this is what pisses me off about the way this football club is run. Arrogant, mercenary arseholes who run it and think they know better than everybody else and treat fans like shit. And what they don't... Somebody said this to me yesterday, actually. There are so many members of the Man United members club and it costs a certain amount of money. And if half of those people just got rid of their membership, because ultimately membership's not that good, that would be a dent in the Glazers' pocket that they would notice. Well, they would bloody notice it. They'd notice a lot of things because money's important to them. But they don't respect fans at all. They treat us like mushrooms, they throw us in the dark and they feed us on shit. And I think this is completely unacceptable that Mason Mount's been out for 4 months, we don't know a return date and we don't know the injury. Johnny Evans, I didn't even know he was injured for 2 months. We don't know the injury and we don't know the return date. Binder, a lot of you didn't know he was injured. He is. How long? What's the injury? Luke Shaw, what's the injury? How long? Why are we not getting this information? And don't say, we don't want to give the opposition an advantage. We give them a bloody advantage every fucking game at Old Trafford just by not turning up. Why are fans being less informed than we were? What's going on at this football club? Why can't we be told what the injuries are? It's unacceptable. The way they run this football club is unacceptable. It's all right sat there going, Mason Mount's injured again. With what? What is the injury? It's heading up for 4 months. What is the injury? Is it a hamstring? Is it a knee? Is it a calf? Is it an ankle? What is it? What is it with Luke Shaw? What is it with Binder? What is it with Mainu? What is it? I mean, I think we might know Mainu's, but like, why aren't we being told? What is the disadvantage of educating your fans that this player has this injury and is expected back in April sometime? Every other club does it. Why don't we do it? Why aren't we doing it? Why did we start not doing it? It started with Ten Hag and it's continued, so it's obviously a club thing. Do you know how frustrating it is to be a Man United fan at the moment? And do you know how frustrating it is to look at our squad and see how threadbare it is and then go, when's that player back? I don't know, because we don't even know what the bloody injury is. Morons. Education is power. Communication is key. I'm not saying it'd make people feel better, but it would be nice to know that none of these players will be back till the middle of April and this is the injury they've got. Or one of them might be back next week. It's disgusting. And I don't know whether, look, maybe it's just me, but it winds me up. Why can't we be told what the injury is with Johnny Evans and when he's going to be back? Or Bienda. And Arna's fucking shit in goal. If Bienda's not back till June, we got to get on with it. If he's back next week, there might be something we can do, but we don't know. We don't know. We just don't know. Harvey says, respect your point, Mark, but it's not fair to international fans. We're not lucky enough to watch them every week. I don't know what you're talking about, Harvey. Mate, honestly, I couldn't give a shit about when you get to watch Man United or not, because that we should be going on tour to Malaysia and Hong Kong on a pre-season. That's when you should be seeing us play. We shouldn't be going there to accommodate you at the end of the season, and that's not what we're doing anyway. If that was the story, we've not been out to Malaysia or Hong Kong for years, so we feel like we need to give something back to our fans, so we're going out there. If that was the story, I would agree with you, Harvey. You know, there's fantastic fans all around the world that deserve to see Manchester United. But Manchester United do play in Manchester, you know, and I know a lot of people can't afford it, but that's where Manchester United play. So Man United don't have an obligation to go out anywhere. My issue is we shouldn't be doing this at the end of the season, whether it's South Africa, United States, Australia, Malaysia, Hong Kong. We shouldn't be doing it. You know, if I got a phone call from Amorin saying, there's a lovely football pitch just down the road from you, Mark, we'd love to come and play a match for you. When are you going to do it? At the end of the season? Forget it. That's a stupid idea. Get some rest. That's my point. It's great that Man United, and they should be going around the world more to see their fans. We only do the US tour for money now. It used to be every other year. It's every year now. No one really talks about that. It's every year. We don't tour the world anymore. We do America. This is about money. If you want Man United to go to Hong Kong or Malaysia or Melbourne or South Africa, you better cough up 10 million because they ain't going to do it any other way. And that's my point. This is for money. I love the fact that, you know, this is a worldwide fan base and everybody should it'd be great for everybody to see Man United, but let's not forget, let's not pretend, Harvey, that they're doing it so you can see Man United. That's not what they're doing it for. And that's my issue with it. It's the end of a hard season, shoehorned in, when players should be resting, that could increase their injury risk, and we moan about too many games, and we're going out to play 2 games to pocket a bit of money. That's my issue with it. Thanks everyone for watching. Absolutely fantastic. Good morning show. We're back at 8 o'clock tonight. I'll look forward to that. And yeah, brilliant show this morning. Really enjoyed it. Don't forget, Dublin. It's going to be a cracker. It's sort of like a United Stand show on a 10 when I've had about 4 pints before I go on stage. So it'll be a cracking show. Thank you very much for that. And I'll speak to you later. Sorry, before I go, we've had a comment in, don't listen to this, Pratt, in the chat. You've got a crap name for a start. And he goes, Collier's injury is a muscle injury, he's back this month. Mount injury is a muscle injury, he's back this month. And Shaw hamstring injury and he's back this month. What a load of bollocks. What, mate, what's a load of shit? So what muscle injury is it? At what point this month? What muscle injury is it for Mount? And at what point this month? And Luke Shaw back this month. Mate, it's March the 1st. Do you work for Man United by any chance? There's 31 days in the month. What muscle injury and what day? Middle of the month? You know, most football clubs will say, Van der Ven, April the 14th, hamstring injury. That's not an update, mate. That's fucking awful. Take care, everyone. Speak to you in a bit.